What's going on, folks? Ted from Immersion here, and it is the first Friday of the month, so that means it is time for a DM's Guild Roundup review, although you might be seeing this on Saturday by the time this gets released. That being said, I have, and I think I can honestly say, 3 of some of the most amazing DM's Guild community-created content available for you in this. We have campaign setting stuff, we have amazing high-level adventures, and a methodically thought out, well-designed, brand new level 1 to 20 class. So I'm not really going to belabor this too much, but I will say thank you to the DM's Guild for sponsoring this video. I've talked about it before, but the way it works is once a month, the first Friday of every month, I do a DM's Guild Roundup review, where the DM Guild gives me carte blanche to pick any modules I want to review. Your feedback has led me to believe that 3 modules seems to be the sweet spot where we can touch on a couple, give you a couple of opinions, not dive too deep, or not provide you not enough information while still keeping the video to a relatively manageable time frame. So there's no guarantee that I'll actually like what I pick. I'm allowed to say whatever I want, and that's sort of the relationship that we've worked out. Additionally, if you're unaware, I have a constant coupon code that's in the description of all of these videos that is for 5% off a $5 or more community-created content, and that's Herald, Herald, Nerd 5. That applies all throughout the month, but in the week following this video's release, I will have a 10% off $10 or more orders. So, you know, if you wait, you can obviously use the 5% code throughout the month, or wait to use this at the beginning, the first week of every month. So that being said, you can see this number is now 92.3K. I would love to have this be 100K by the time Gen Con rolls around in, August, so that we can have a party there and all celebrate. But anyway, let's talk about what 3 modules I have to talk to you today about. So first up, I'm going to go through a little bit, just talk about them, and then I will dive in a little bit deeper. But there's a ton of content here. We're looking at close to 400 or more pages between the 3. So that took a while to read through myself. But first up, we have the Runekeeper Class and Runic Invocation. This is one that so many of you have put out to me, Indestructiboy over on Twitter, and so many of you said, you got to check this out. You can see it's a best silver seller. It only came out on the 5th of February, so less than a month at this point. 14 5-star reviews, and it is a brand new level 1 to 20 class. But not only is it that, with several different subclasses and plans for the future, it also has taking this concept of rune magic and also has ways to apply it to several other of the base classes as well, which I thought was pretty cool. We also have Thay, Land of the Red Wizards. This is a best platinum seller. This came out on the 21st of February, written by Ed Greenwood, the creator of the Forgotten Realms, as well as Alex Kammer and Alan Patrick. I don't know Alex, but I do know Alan wrote a lot of the early Adventures League content. Again, 4.5 stars for 16 ratings, best platinum seller in under 2 weeks. Obviously, that goes to say something. This is a campaign setting, and the kind of stuff I wish I could see from Wizards of the Coast, where we could get a true deep dive into a specific region of a realm. And these are the kinds of things we used to receive in the past, but now we kind of just get these high-level glossing over things, primarily in the form of adventure modules. But this has subclasses and a variety of other stuff. This one also gives you the option to pick it up print on demand as well. And Uncaged Goddesses, this also came out on the 22nd of February. 5 stars with 9 reviews, best gold seller. This is kind of a continuation in the Uncaged anthology series. This one specifically is all about goddesses. You can also see that this one has print-on-demand versions as well. And probably my favorite part is this is specifically designed for Tier 4 play. Designed and play-tested for characters of level 17 to 20. Something that is very rare, if ever seen, in 5th edition. So, again, I will have affiliate links to all of these in the video description, which does mean if you click on that link and purchase it via that link, I do get a small, it's like 8% of the purchase price. So, again, that's the way it is with anything that I put out in all of these DM's Guild-related reviews. So if you happen to pick it up from my link, a little bit comes back to the channel. So thank you if you choose to do that. So let's go ahead and pull up. We'll start with the Runekeeper. You can see this is a 70-page document. The art in here is fantastic, by the way. And we'll just all three of these have bookmarks, so that's a big head stamp of approval right off the gate. But yeah, as you can see, there's a ton of information that was brought into this. It lists all of the different material that was used as inspiration. But we can see we have the Runekeeper, as I said, a new level 1 to 20 class. We have the Keeper's Dialects, which are the subclasses for this, and you can see they're based around, surprisingly to no one, runes. Then we have a Sage of Runes Druid, a Rune Knight Fighter, and an Order of Invocation Wizard. We have a couple of feats. And then the next section is all about the runes themselves, right? That would be kind of, for lack of a better term, let's call them the spells, right, if you will. They're obviously not, and if you're familiar with the concept of how runes have been established in 5th edition so far, with the sort of runes from Storm King's Thunder, and the way, is it the Rune Knight, the subclass? I don't know, whatever it is, but in Tasha's Cauldron, similar in that respect. And then there's actually a really nice bit at the end about creating your own runes, which is, again, the kind of thing that I also wish we had from Wizards of the Coast. Yeah, it's great for you to provide us all of these things, or even in some instances, very small amounts of things. But I would love if you could give us tools to create our own to help us further the game beyond the couple usually closed-minded amount of stuff that you've provided. So, again, I can't go through this entirely because we'll be here forever, so I do want to touch on the class, though, and go through it. So you can see it's here. I like the proficiencies, has a nice little mixture, right? Simple weapons, warhammers, polearms, calligrapher's supplies, you know. That's an intelligence-based class as far as the rune magic itself. And it has a lot of cool linguistic-based abilities because you're a crafter of runes, and that makes perfect sense, right? So you're able to, these runes, and there's a lot of language in here about how, how many runes you know. You basically get one at every level, but you have to be able to write or understand the language that the rune is written in. And as you can kind of see from the side here, we have Abyssal, Celestial, Draconic, Druidic, so on. So, right, Druidic is a very rare language, but if you can speak Druidic, you can access the Druidic runes. So, cool stuff like that. Even Thieves' Cant, right, that rogues use, is an option that you can get Thieves' Cant related runes. There's a little bit again about inscribing the runes, and you can basically inscribe a rune. And I feel like this part kind of makes sense to a lot of people. You can inscribe a rune onto an item, and then other people can use that item, or you could use it yourself. You're the only one who can invoke the rune, which is sort of to amplify its effect to another level, right? There's a base passive effect that everyone can use, and then there's sort of the invoked effect, which is something that only the Runekeeper can use. You have a lot of stuff about learning languages. You get your dialect. You get these things called runic stances, which is basically just you have a defensive and an offensive stance that you can enter, that you can activate as a bonus action, and then your subclass will provide you other options for that. The ability to kind of detect magic. And then there's also this concept you get at 5th level called runic charges, which basically allows you to basically reawaken a rune that's gone inert. If you've invoked it, you can, recharge it essentially. I really like harmonic attunement too, makes it a very good party-based character, right? So when a creature attunes to a magic item that bears one of your inscribed runes that requires attunement, it doesn't count against their limit of attuned magic items. So that's a cool way that you could help the party out, and then everybody's going to be happy for it. Again, we got some more invoking multiple runes. Now your runes can persist even after you die. You can read all languages, and then your stance increases. So I thought I'd start with the first one here, which is Deathic. This is, excuse me, Dwarven runes. So obviously you have access to the Dwarven language. You can attune to any magic you've inscribed with the Dwarvish rune. So basically, if you have something that's, only dwarves can wear it and you're a human and you inscribe one of your runes on it, it kind of bypasses that. And then it says you can also use your downtime to craft or engrave armor or weapons with a choice of your runes. You get to add an additional effect to those stances, as we talked about. You can give a +1 to AC, a bonus to saving throws against being frightened, or 2 attacks when you would normally only have 1, which is pretty cool. This Words of Adamance allows you to add more runes to an item than you typically could. And then Fury of the Forge is when you hit a creature with a melee weapon that you've imbued, You can call upon its power and then make them make a charisma saving throw or follow one of these multiple effects here. Creatures can't be charmed or frightened, or can't be frightened by the target. It reduces its or removes its immunity. It takes additional fire damage, or just takes fire damage at the start of each of its turns. And then again, you have an opportunity to spend your runic charges to reactivate that. So if we were to scroll down, we can kind of just touch on this quickly. You can see, again, the other subclasses here. And your rune types, you basically have Dwarven, Fiendish, Goblin, Draconic, Giant, and Celestial. And it does say at the bottom here that there are Primordial runes, Elemental-based runes, and there is also an entire plan for a new Primordial-based subclass to be released in the future. A couple of simple feats, a little bit about Runic Invocation and how it works, multi-classing as well, and then you can see the extensive list of runes from a variety of different categories here. So I think I was going to skip to Draconic. Wasn't the ones I was going to show off here? You can see there's a variety of different options, and some of them have different prerequisites as you scroll through here. And here's obviously the Druidic ones. I can't remember if there was one specific one I wanted to show you. I think it was a Celestial rune, actually. A pretty simplistic one. It's Ignis. It's right here. Okay, so Celestial Fire rune. And if you have this rune counts as a magic rune. Excuse me, the creature wielding or carrying this inscribed rune can cast Sacred Flame. Pretty simplistic. It's a cantrip. But if you invoke it as an action, and invocation time is a minute, the creature wielding or carrying the inscribed rune can cast Sacred Flame at the end of another creature's turn as a reaction for the duration of that 1 minute. And that is awesome. It's almost like giving you kind of your own legendary action, as it were. But it is a continued reaction that you can choose to use for that time frame as long as the rune is invoked. I love that. And honestly, folks, even if you're not going to use this class or employ it in your game, I would highly recommend picking this up, if anything, just for the effects of the different runes that you could employ in your own game, whether they're rune-based or just new magic items that you have, feats, features, whatever kind of stuff you want to add. There's a lot of really awesome stuff here that you could sample. Here, let's look at this Pulvinus one here, right? When the creature wearing or carrying this inscribed object attacks a creature and scores a critical hit, they regain one of their expended hit die. That's awesome. That's a great effect you could add to a magic weapon. It could be a feat. It could be a blessing given by a god. I don't know. And then if you invoke it as a reaction, which you take when a creature wearing or carrying one of your runes takes damage, you can spend as many of your hit dice as you would like and roll them, reducing the damage taken by that result. Again, these are amazing. There's so many stuff that, like I said, you saw that huge list. So much awesome stuff that you can use. It's definitely worth picking up, if nothing, just to look at the runes to inspire other ideas in your campaigns. Again, and then, like I said, we have a couple here for Thieves' Cant, which I thought were pretty cool as well. Ace is probably one of my favorite ones here as well. It's a deck of playing cards. It counts as a weapon. Cards within this deck become magical darts that you can throw for a d4 slashing damage that you can use either Intelligence, Dex, Wisdom, or Charisma for the attack and damage rolls. Also, if you have additional runes, you can up the, give it a little bit of a bonus. And then you can invoke it as a bonus action, and then basically for a minute you could have them deal a different type of damage: acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison, or thunder, which is pretty sweet. And then, like I said at the bottom, we have a creating runes section about designing how to make your own runes, which is, 2 pages, but still, that's better than we've gotten from Wizards of the Coast. So, definitely worth checking out. Then we have Thay, the Land of Red Wizards, which is a 109-page document, which has, obviously, Ed Greenwood, who created Thay in the first place, as one of the 3 authors on here. So, I'm going to skip through a lot of the intro stuff, because I feel like it's just lore. And again, I told you, while I do appreciate Dungeons & Dragons and Faerunian lore, there are channels, some of them friends of mine, that are purely dedicated to just doing lore. They're have a better concept of what to do and whether this hits the mark or not. So we have Chapter 1 is all about the people in Thay. Chapter 2 is about the ruling in Thay, right? It's a magocracy, obviously, Red Wizards and so on. The Zolkirs, I believe, are kind of like the liches or the high rulers. And then we have the points of interest, and I wanted to show off, I think it's in here. Yeah, this uses the sort of, I don't know if it was pioneered prior to it, but I started to see it in Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. this sort of high-level breakdown of the given cities, or in this instance, points of interest within Thay or in any city. And this is the level of detail that I ascribe. Ascribe? I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but I'm attempting to reach that level in my own homebrew worlds, and I would recommend that you try to do the same if possible. And I'll zoom in and show it off here. So this is the Docks of Thay. It has the name of it, it has the pronunciation for it, the population, who the leader is, and a little breakdown about that person, the military presence, the commerce for that area, and the religious influences. And then that's like a flag of it, right? And that's what you kind of get. And I feel like that bit of information is key stuff that you should be able to produce for any pre-established cities you have in your own campaign. Now, again, if you need to throw a campaign or a city in randomly that you weren't planning to because of the way the party has taken off the path you planned for, obviously you won't have that. But if you know that your one continent has 10 major cities, I would take the time to look at this kind of stuff and design at least this much information for those 10 major cities. And then you can fill in the back stuff and all the individual little things as time goes on, but at least you have the overarching structure of the city. And then you could obviously fill out more in here as they have done. Chapter 4 is about heroes from Thay. Now, I was going to read through the Weave-Bound Paladin, but I do think I love it personally, but it definitely flies in the face of a lot of 5th edition stuff, and I think it might put a lot of people off because it has requirements. And this is things we had seen in the past with basically the concept of certain replacement features as well as prestige classes, right? So to be a Weave-Bound Paladin, you need to have an intelligence score of at least 12. You need to have 2 levels in the Wizard class, which honestly requires you to have at least an intelligence of 13. Be able to multi-class into Wizard and Paladin, you need to have 13 strength, 13 charisma, and 13 intelligence. So that actually, that top bit is kind of erroneous because 2 levels of Wizard means the 13s. And you must have a powerful patron, a minimum challenge rating of 20, such as a Demon Lord, a Zulkir, or similar, and the patron must not be currently bonded to another Weave-Bound Paladin. And as such, that's sort of your kind of might and magic combination, your divine and arcane, and you have abilities tied to that. And if we kind of look through, you can kind of see here, but they have a lot of stuff that is dealing with your patron, right? So it says, you can use your one of the channel divinities is creating a spell component worth 50 gold pieces times your paladin level. And it said that could be cool, and you could use it to sell because it'll disappear after, I think, an hour. It's used or until a minute has passed. That could raise ire in your patron if you're out there summoning their channel divinity to just basically scam people. But depending on your patron, they might be all about it. But yeah, it's just a lot of interesting stuff tied to magical things, and I like that you basically become an iron golem once you reach 20th level. That's sort of your avatar form, if you will. They also have a whole section in here about circle magic. This is the concept of employing multiple spellcasters together, and we've seen this in a couple of other articles as well. But basically, you're casting a ritual that requires multiple people all together to summon some sort of big magic ability. And there's a lot of very interesting stuff about what it takes to participate in them, what will happen, the downsides of it, a couple of new feats as well tied to circle magic. We have some Thayan backgrounds as well, and a handful of Thayan equipment, as well as some Thayan trinkets here as well. And then we have new creatures, which there is a couple creatures I wanted to show off. Probably the Poltergoat is my go-to one that I need to show all of you because, the image is literally an invisible goat. Says, Red Wizards have long sought to find ways by which to give their soldiers spell-like abilities without giving them actual spellcasting powers. One such experiment led to the mages attempting to give creatures the ability to shift between the primaterial plane and the astral plane. After the initial theory crafting was complete and the runic magic work began, they turned their gaze upon local goat herds. Unfortunately, they only succeeded in making invisible goats. Today, these goats are considered feral, and there is an unknown but assumedly large number of them. The wizard attached to the project were slain by Zastam out of spite. And we have our challenge rating to Poltergoats. They have most ghost-like resistances, as you can see here, as well as immunities. They can move through objects incorporeally. They have a 50-foot fly speed and can hover. They are invisible permanently. They do have sunlight sensitivity in the form of disadvantage on attack rolls and perception checks. They have their slam attack, which does 3d6 force damage, and a telekinetic thrust attack, Poltergeist targets a creature on an unattended object within 30 feet. It must be medium or smaller, and the object can weigh up to 150 pounds. If the target's a creature, they must make a charisma check against the goat's. The Poltergeist makes a charisma check against the target's strength check. If the goat wins, the goat hurls the target 30 feet in any direction, including upward. If the target then comes into contact with a hard surface, they take a d6 per damage per 10 feet moved. If the target is an object that isn't being worn or carried, it hurls it up to 30 feet in any direction and can use the object as a ranged weapon with a +4 to hit, dealing 2d4 bludgeoning damage on a hit. And I think that that is hilarious, and I love it. And lastly, we also do have an adventure here called Intrigue and Eltabar, which is a starter level adventure. As you can see here, it's set for 4 first level characters, and then eventually they can make it to level 3 if they were to finish playing through this adventure. Then we have a couple of appendices showing off maps, player handouts, and so on. And lastly, we have Uncaged Goddesses, and I'm in love with this one, folks. It's so thought out and so well designed in so many aspects. So if we go ahead, probably I would say this. If you are running high-level D&D, even if you're not running these encounters, read this section. A quick guide to running Tier 4. I've said it before, we all know Wizards of the Coast doesn't seem to believe it because they don't balance anything past level 10. This is for 17 characters level 17 to 20. We are talking 9th level spells are in the mix, folks. You need to be prepared for that. This is not your mama's, base level Lost Mines of Phandelver levels 1 to 5. They have reality shaping magic at their fingertips. You need to be aware of that, but also accepting of the fact that that is a thing. Because no one wants to play in a high-tier, high-level campaign if they're not allowed to do the cool things that they're allowed to do. And that's what this quick guide to running Tier 4 kind of touches on, right? So we have adjust the difficulty as needed, right? It says, Tier 4 parties can vary widely in skill sets and capabilities. Feel free to raise or lower the DCs. But you want to hit in that sweet spot of possible but difficult. Add or remove monsters from encounters as needed. Heck, feel free to futz around with the HP, the AC, and so on. Inform your players of difficulty spikes. Some checks in this book are very high for a reason. I saw at least a couple that were 30 plus. It says not every challenge rating can be overcome with a single roll. And that's part of it too. Your party of high-level adventurers work together, right? Your guidances, your giving advantage on attack rolls, or giving your advantage on wisdom checks, your owl's wisdom, enhance ability. Do these, you might need to do that to overcome some of these. It says, if passing an essential check requires preparation and coordination, inform them and give them time to discuss the next steps. If they're about to engage in a group of checks that involve several steps, inform them of the steps prior to the rolls. To my point, wish is not your enemy. Don't be afraid of your players' top-tier abilities. Most parties rarely get to play at this point, and it's fun to let them feel overpowered. When they do an absurdly powerful things that break the world a bit, just roll with it. The most fun parts of role-playing come when players do what is unexpected, and they almost always do what's unexpected. And then again, fail forward. The adventures in this book are written so that failed checks allow players to find alternative routes or open up new paths for role-playing. There may be checks you add or even remove when running. Be mindful to introduce opportunities for your characters to continue the adventure when they fail the check. No one is happy when an adventure ends because of a locked door that should have never had end an adventure of Tier 4 play. Agreed. And then obviously, have fun. Remember, you're also a player and your enjoyment is just as important as everyone else's. So you can see we have a variety of different domains, the clerical domains, and a ton of different goddesses here. Things that you probably wouldn't expect, like Blipdupoop, the female Kuatoa goddess. We also have, where is she? The Great Mother, the Beholder goddess, people you probably are unaware of. But I am going to go over to Bashaba. When luck runs out, as many people know, Timora is my favorite goddess in all of Dungeons & Dragons. I feel like I've made an inadvertent pact with her in my real life, as I do seem to be slightly on the lucky side, and RNG tends to favor me in a lot of aspects. So, as you can see, this adventure is set for levels 18 to 20, and it basically has to do with a casino and a sort of escalating curse of Bashaba. Potential spoilers for this adventure if you're planning to run or play in it. But basically, yeah, the party goes to this casino. They're on this Isle of Fortune, and it's basically like a resort. Party's there for a vacation, having fun at the casino. There's a couple of games here that are kind of fun. Sample, like, gambling things the party can do. And then basically, Bashaba, long story short, was sealed away by clerics of, or acolytes of Tymora. Tymora being the goddess of luck, Bashaba being the goddess of misfortune. History, they were originally one person, Taiki, and they were split into two, supposed to represent good and bad luck, and then it kind of went, Tymora covered both aspects of luck, Bashaba covered misfortune, and there's a little rivalry there, constant back and forth. But I like this concept of the curses, so as time goes on, players become afflicted with Bashaba's curses as things get more escalating in the adventure. So the first curse is whenever they fail a check or saving throw, the DM can ask them to roll a d20. On a roll of 1 to 9, they suffer bad luck, an additional consequence of that failure. This can range from a character getting hurt or on a bad stealth check, or to an off-targeted spell hitting an ally instead. The casino starts to collapse, the party has to escape, and they basically make their way, and here we can see sort of a Taiki, Tymora, Bashaba sort of imagery here. And then they get into this really awesome, basically roulette wheel temple beneath this, and you basically need to make your way through the different rings of the roulette wheel. And it's really cool because you need to basically gather these things they're calling basically glowstones, or the tokens that allow you to move on. And you need to succeed on 3 of the various trials within the first ring, and they're all drastically different. But at this point, right before it happens, they get afflicted with Bashaba's second curse, which is now whenever they make skill checks, saving throws, an ability check, or a saving throw using a skill they're proficient in, they have to roll d12s instead of d10s, which is very interesting. That could be very fun. So basically, you have to do a variety of different things, right? One of them could be popping in and out of the material plane to defeat ghosts. This one is an entire room filled with coins, and you need to basically put a coin that has 2 sides. They're all double-sided coins. One of them has heads on both sides, basically, amongst an entire dragon treasure hoard. And it's obvious, as you can see here, it's a DC 30 investigation check to find it. And then there's obviously a handful of other things you can do, a variety of different, there's 6 in total. You roll a d6, and you have to solve 3 of those to get to the second ring, which is when we make our way into the High Priestess's chamber. We learn a little bit more about the history, and then essentially, at a point, Bashaba emerges into the physical plane and afflicts you with the third curse. Anytime a player rolls a 20, there's a 50% chance that turns it into a 1. So when you roll a natural 20, you're going to roll a percentile die, and a 50% chance that your natural 20 turns into a natural 1. And then essentially you have to have the showdown with Bashaba. I'm not going to belabor it too much, but there are clever ways to make your way out of it. And you don't necessarily need to side with the acolytes. You could side with the goddess of misfortune if you so choose. If you do side with the acolytes, you are given a special blessing that is once, period, you can replace the roll on a die with a 20 instead. At some point, you only have that a one-time use, but that's something great to have in your back pocket. And then obviously we can see a challenge rating 30 stat block here for Bashaba, the Maiden of Misfortune. Probably don't try and fight her. It's not going to go well for you. She's a goddess, right? True sight out to 120 feet. Her passive perception's 28. I mean, look at this, right? She can't be destroyed. She got legendary resistance. When she has half of her hit points once per round, when she rolls, she can reroll an attack roll, saving throw, or ability check, take the higher result. When she has less than half her hit points once per round, she can force a creature to reroll an attack roll, saving throw, or ability check. And then here you can see her different abilities here, right? Her flail has a 10-foot reach, does 3d8 plus 7 slashing damage, plus 2d6 radiant damage. If she scores a crit, they're wounded by the barbs. They take additional damage equal to half the damage dealt, rounded down at the start of their next turn. She's got all of her spell casting. She can teleport, legendary actions, lair actions. It's not a fight you want to get into, folks. That's what I'm trying to say. But there are clever ways to get in and out of it, or you could attempt to just try and slog through it. That's an option too. And we can see, again, we have a variety of different things. We even have some non-Faerunian gods. We have the Fury from Eberron, Mother Night from Ravenloft, and Pharika from Theros. And then we also have some pre-generated tier 4 characters for people who may not want to be making up those characters, because that's a lot. And then we also have printable handouts for the various maps and things. And the maps, obviously, you can see the cartography is phenomenal on all of these. So there you go, folks. Sorry this video was so long, but there was a ton of content to cover, and I tried to keep it as high level as I could while also providing you enough information on each of them. So, like I said, if you haven't checked the video description already, you can go ahead and use the Herald Nerd 5 for the 5% off throughout the month. But for the next week that ends next Friday the 11th, you can use Nerd March 10, Nerd, the month of March, all together, and the number 10 to get 10% off $10 or more community content. So consider checking that out. Again, I told you they're all affiliate links. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.